One of my favorite videos on YouTube is Zave Frank's introduction and explanation of the concept of Exformation, that the things that we don't say in our conversations are as important as the things that we do. And it's the basis of what I want to talk about right now, so if you aren't familiar with Exformation, go watch the video right here, right now, and then come back and we can talk. Alright, now that we're all on the same page, let's get started. A common refrain among casual patrons of art is that art is too complicated and it's too abstruse. And every few months I see the question rise again. Why can't we just state our meaning rather than hiding between layers and layers of interpretation and suggestion? It's because art is exformation. Through decades and centuries and millennia of experimentation, we found out that we can sometimes better say what we mean when we don't actually say it. We can make you feel what we're feeling rather than just telling you what we're feeling. We can make you question and examine your life from perspectives that you might not otherwise consider. We can pack paragraphs of meaning into a handful of words, a couple of verses, or a few choice brushstrokes. At its root, a lot of artistic exformation is based around the phenomena of how we experience and sense the world around us. In music, we've realized that certain melodies and rhythms make us feel satisfied while others make us feel restless. In poetry, we've realized that consonants and repetition and rhythm and rhyme all affect which words we stop and dwell on, and change how we read phrases and how we interpret them. And once these discoveries have been around long enough, we start to codify them into mythologies of exformation. We build structures and conventions around these phenomena that themselves become new sources of exformation that allow us another avenue of imbuing meaning by either following them or breaking them. The problem is that there is no committee that standardizes exformation. There is no one to ensure that something can't be interpreted more than one way. So as a patron or analyst of art, we have to do some digging to try and figure out which meaning the artist meant, if any of them at all. And this ambiguity leads to a whole host of problems in trying to understand the exformation. Sometimes in trying to find authorial intent, we overinterpret. We read things to mean things that the artist never intended. At the release of J.R.R. Tolkien's The Lord of the Rings, some critics and commentators took the ring to be an allegory of the atom bomb, and the whole series to be a commentary on World War II. But when Tolkien had written the series, the atom bomb didn't even exist, or at the very least, it didn't exist in the public sphere. Similarly, several people have interpreted Radiohead's album OK Computer as a concept album that follows one character through the entire work. But members of Radiohead have since stated that the album wasn't a concept album at all, and that the themes expressed in the songs cover an entire plethora of concepts rather than just one single experience. In addition to overinterpreting what artists say, we can also underinterpret and miss their point entirely. One piece of art that's been cannibalized by this underinterpretation is Robert Frost's The Road Not Taken. The poem's famous and known by many, but often for all the wrong reasons. Many people interpret the poem only from the very last verse, which states, "I shall be telling this with a sigh, somewhere ages and ages hence. Two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference." The public misinterpretation of this poem is that it's about personal empowerment and discovery, and about finding the one path that's better than all the others. But in interpreting it this way, readers miss the exformation that Robert Frost put elsewhere in the poem, and thus misread the last verse entirely. Twice in the second stanza, Frost states that the two roads are essentially equivalent, that the second road is just as fair as the first, and the two are worn really about the same. With this knowledge, the meaning of the last stanza changes entirely. When Frost states that he shall tell with a sigh somewhere ages and ages hence that there was a difference in the road that he picked versus the road that he avoided, with a despondent sigh, he's rationalizing to future generations the reasons for his choices, even though now he knows there's virtually no difference between them. Finally, sometimes we miss the exformation that artists put in their work because we simply don't have the context to understand it. Exformation often requires common experience or common understanding. In conversation, we often know the common ground that we share with our audience, and thus we can maximize upon that shared understanding in parsing our information into exformation. In art, we often don't know our audience, and as a result, we don't know if one particular expression of meaning will get through to them. As a result, we often leave several clues, and we use many different forms of exformation with the hopes that at least one or two gets across the majority of our audience. We musicians use consonants, melody, rhythm, rhyme, and cultural context to try and drive our point home. And for the listeners, sometimes the difference between liking a piece of music and loving it is dependent upon how many of these clues we can pick up. So to answer the question, why can't art be straightforward, and why can't we just state everything that we mean? If we did so, it wouldn't be art anymore. It would be conversation. And while conversation is good, if we always seek to eradicate ambiguity for the sake of maximum clarity, we remove art's ability to move us deeply, and we get rid of all of the phenomena that make art special. Thanks again to Zay Frank for his explanation of Exformation, because without it, I would never have figured this out. This is Jacke Karashae, wishing you all enriched artistic experiences. Ding!